All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we tackle the latest list and who the 49ers have met with in advance of the NFL draft and what that means and who they're looking at. We'll tell you all about it coming up next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. This video is also brought to you by Claw Daddy Arcades. That's right. Big thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades for sponsoring our Krug Show trip to Arizona. You can follow them on Instagram at claw_daddy_arcades and find an arcade location near you. And also thanks to our good friends at LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. Whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, marketing, any other high-demand field, they offer over 30 different certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. 37 years in business, over 200,000 students, over 100 graduates every year placed with brand new jobs. So the links are in the description below. LearnKey Upskill Academy. Check them out. Hopefully we can help you, help yourself. And thanks to all these people for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about a list that I've become accustomed to checking. Steph Sanchez, who's a pretty good follow as a Niner content creator on X at Steph49K. And she has a list of who, like basically a Excel spreadsheet on who the 49ers have met with, what school they go to, what conference, the type of meeting it was, when it was reported, who reported it, so on and so forth. And there's a number of really interesting names on this list. And first of all, and we've talked about this list a couple times. One, there's people asking me what quarterbacks are the Niners interested in? Well, I don't know that they're interested in any quarterbacks, to be completely honest. Because they have Mac Jones and obviously they have Brock Purdy. They have Tanner Mordecai. They may or may not draft a quarterback, but if it's all based on the quarterbacks they've met with 4 quarterbacks. CJ Ogbonna, a super athletic quarterback from the University of Buffalo. Graham Mertz, who's been at a couple different schools, most recently at Florida. Not really the big Graham Mertz fan, to be honest. Chandler Rogers, from Cal, the ex-Cal Bear quarterback. And probably the most interesting name on the list is Taylor Elgersma. Elgersma played for Laurier, which is a school up in Canada, and he's just an intriguing prospect, 6'6", 215, big arm, very athletic. He might be the, wild card of wild cards, regardless of position, in this draft. Go, if you get a chance, take 5 minutes and go watch Taylor Elgersma from Laurier. You can look him up on YouTube and see some highlights. He's got a big arm. And he's pretty athletic. And from what I can tell, he's a pretty good prospect, at least on paper. And I saw him throw the ball. It looks like he's got a great arm. He was invited to the Senior Bowl and he didn't disappoint. So he is one of only 4 quarterbacks that the 49ers have met with. All right. How about at the other positions? What other ways do you like to crunch this list? Well, let's talk about the defensive ends that they've met with, because that's a big spot, right? They got to find a guy opposite Nick Bosa. Drake Jackson's career could be done. They cut Leonard Floyd. They're really thin here, right? I mean, once upon a time, they had D Ford and Nick Bosa together, Samson Ebukam and others. Charles Omenihu. I mean, they had a lot of talent at the defensive end spot. They're very, very thin. Okay, who did they look at? David Walker from Central Arkansas. Interesting player, really athletic. He's a very intriguing pass rusher. Jaw Joyner from the University of Minnesota. Really like Jaw Joyner, about 260 pounds, 6'4", 260 pounds. Kyle Kennard. It's going to be really interesting to me to see where in this draft Kyle Kennard goes. Why? Well, he didn't test well, but he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So, I mean, he was the best defensive player in the best defensive conference in America for South Carolina, and yet he didn't test as a big-time athlete. But, man, you turn on that film, and there's Kyle Kennard, winning and winning and winning and winning. So it'll be interesting. Does he fall to day 3 because of his lack of measurables, or does he go, really, really high because he's an edge rusher and an accomplished one at that? He could go anywhere from the late first round to the beginning of the 4th round. To me, that's an interesting player to watch. And the Niners met with Kyle Kennard. Another guy they met with is Shamar Stewart. Will Shamar Stewart come off the board, be in the top 10, or would the Niners go for him? He didn't have a big sack production career at A&M, but if you're just looking for the guy that he is an amazing talent as far as athleticism. You're talking about 6'4", 280, fast as heck, strong as an ox. You can play him inside, outside. He's one of the most gifted athletes in this class by far. 5-star recruit, amazing talent. Led A&M in pressures, but he didn't sack the quarterback a lot. So you got Shamar Stewart, you got Kyle Kennard, you got Ja Joyner, you got David Walker. You also have Olufemi Oladejo from UCLA, who Tony Pauline says the Niners love and may be interested in drafting as high as the 2nd round. They met with him. Okay, so those are the group of defensive ends. I might have missed one or two, but that's basically the group. Now, how about defensive tackle? I think a lot of people are saying, who are they going to get at defensive tackle? Well, they've met with Derek Harmon from Oregon. They had an individual with him. Walter Nolan, Shamar Turner, C.J. West, Kenneth Grant, and Aeneas Peebles. And I'll tell you, I think all those guys would be great 49ers. Peebles is a 6-foot-tall pass rusher. Kenneth Grant, big physical nose guard. C.J. West is 320 pounds and fast. Shamar Turner was a 5-star player coming out of high school. He went to A&M, super physically dominant. Walter Nolan, one of the best players in the SEC this year, and Derek Harmon led all tackles in pressures. Now, I don't love Harmon against the run, but to me, that's a great group of defensive tackles, and they probably have interest in all of them. Peebles, Kenneth Grant, C.J. West, Shamar Turner, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. Those are the defensive tackles they've met with. The big note of the day was that they met with Josh Conerly. Now, they met with Conerly. It came out today like it happened recently, but it was just announced recently. He actually had a formal meeting with the Niners at the Combine, and it first was reported on March 1st by our good friend Rohan Rohan Chakravarthy. He reported that back on March the 1st. But it did come out today that the Niners met with Josh Conerly. And let's talk a little bit about Conerly, because Conerly had the best 10-yard split of any of the tackles. And the Niners sent 8 people to Eugene for Oregon's Pro Day. And I got to think they were getting a real up-close look at this kid. Josh Conerly Jr., 6'4", 315 pounds. He's a Pacific Northwest guy. There's a lot of talk that maybe the Seahawks are going to try to get this guy in the middle of the first round. He's from Seattle. He went to Rainier Beach High School. He was a 5-star recruit. Everybody wanted this kid. He's if you can believe it, this kid, it was a high school running back. This guy, he was a consensus 5-star recruit in high school. He was a top 35 player nationally. He was the consensus top recruit in the entire state of Washington, top 15 player nationally by 24/7 Sports. The number 3 recruit in the nation, according to ESPN. So he was a top 3 offensive tackle nationally coming out of high school, and the top offensive line prospect by a number of the people who rank such prospects. 4-year letter winner at Rainier Beach High School. As a senior, he was named second team Max Preps All-American. I mean, he's an incredible player, big athlete, played running back. Really, he transitioned from running back to offensive line as a sophomore in high school. So he started his high school career as a running back and then transferred to offensive line. And you can see the athleticism. He had the fastest 10-yard split of anybody. And he's a big-bodied guy who can move people in the run game. So Conerly's a natural athlete for sure, and they met with him. That's one of the big stories of the day. Now, if you're saying, what are some other offensive, looking at that list of who the Niners have met with, how about some other offensive tackles? Well, one of the ones they met with recently is really interesting to me, and that's Caleb Etienne from BYU. He had a virtual meeting with the Niners. He played at BYU. He's 6'7", 330, and he ran 4.95 in the 40 at 6'7", 330. They're thinking day 3 pick. I mean, that seems like a very intriguing day 3 flyer on an offensive lineman, if nothing else. Caleb Etienne. Remember that name. Couple other offensive linemen. Niners looked at a number of offensive linemen. Miles Frazier from LSU, Will Campbell from LSU. Frazier plays guard, Campbell plays tackle. Campbell's got a little bit of shorter arms. They met with both of them at the combine. Kelvin Banks from Texas. They met with him at the combine. Holland Pearce from Rutgers, another hulking, gigantic, probably solely a right tackle. He might even be a right guard, to be completely honest. He's a huge offensive lineman from Rutgers, 6'7", 330 pounds, 340 pounds. They met with Josh Simmons from Ohio State. They had a formal meeting with him at the combine, and they met with Armand Membou from Missouri, who a lot of people think will go to the Niners at 11, but now the talk is that he may not even make it to 11, that Membou may be off the board before he even gets to the Niners. A couple other offensive linemen the Niners met with: Jacob Bayer from Arkansas State, met with him at the Senior Bowl, and Jared Hufford from Iowa State. They met with him at the Hula Bowl. Devontae Gordon from Wake Forest. They met with him at the Tropical Bowl. John Thomas from New Haven. They met with him as well at the Tropical Bowl. And Gerald Mincey from Kentucky. They met with him as well at the Tropical Bowl. And then Braden Swartout from Central Michigan. They met him at the Hula Bowl. So those are the offensive linemen they've met with. As far as, I always feel like LSU has some of the best prospects. We're going to do a whole video on LSU guys, but of the LSU guys, they did meet with Mason Taylor, the tight end. That's Jason Taylor's son. Zy Alexander, the corner, who's got good size, good speed. I really like him. Will Campbell and Miles Frazier of the group from LSU, of the LSU players. As far as, linebackers, that was the other thing. Looking at who they've met with recently, one of the names that they met with recently is Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon. And a lot of people were making a big deal about the fact that John Lynch and Tariq Ahmad had a nice long public conversation with Bassa at the Oregon Pro Day. And I don't doubt the Niners like him. But the Niners have met with some other linebackers as well. Carson Schlesinger from UCLA, very productive player. Kane Madrano, who's kind of a special teamer for UCLA, but he ran an incredible 40 time at the combine. They met with him. He's a special teamer, though. But other linebackers that I really do like that they met with, one was Eugene Asante from Auburn. Eugene Asante, 6 feet, about 220, 225. But he's fast as hell, productive as hell, loves to play, loves to hit. I mean, you will never, ever, ever, ever regret drafting Eugene Asante. He is that explosive, talented, productive. To me, he is one of the lock of locks to be great in this draft, Eugene Asante. And the fact that they met with him at the Senior Bowl gives me some encouragement. Justin Mello reporting that day 3. A lot of people think he's a day 3 player, but I mean, there's no doubt he's a day 3 player, but he's a great one. I mean, to me, he's a starting player on day 3. So, and just looking at some of the sleeper players that they met with who are either day 3 or undrafted players, as far as, guys that I think are really good football players that they met with that are listed either late in the draft or undrafted. Rock Taylor, the receiver from Memphis, really good player. And he's probably going in the 7th round or undrafted. They met with him. BJ Green, the second, the defensive lineman for Colorado, played for Dion. He's a short defensive end, but man, this guy is thick and he can come after the quarterback. Niners met him at the Hula Bowl. BJ Green is probably not going to be drafted. He may be a 7th round guy, but man, that's going to be a great 7th round pick for somebody because BJ Green, he's 6 feet, 260 and fast. And he just keeps coming. The other guy that's really intriguing they met with at the Hula Bowl, Shunderick Powell. Shunderick Powell has some of the best numbers of any running back in this entire draft. He breaks tackles. He's explosive. I bet you he's got like legit low 4.4, high 4.3 speed. When you watch him on the film, he looked to me to be the fastest guy that I saw on film all year. He's a return man. He's about 180 pounds. He's not big, but another Central Arkansas, underrated team. Central Arkansas shunned Derek Powell, and the Niners met with him at the Hula Bowl. Another guy who's, I think, a tremendous sleeper. We were talking to Dave Softy Mahler the other day, and he covers the UW Huskies. Carson Bruner, whose dad played tight end for the Huskies in the late 80s, early 90s, whatever it was, mid 90s. Anyway, Carson Bruner's a linebacker for the Huskies. He ran in the 4.5s, very productive football player for the Huskies. The Niners met with him as well. Bruner's a really good player. And then as far as another sleeper, Rivaldo Fairweather, the tight end from Auburn, didn't play football at all until he was a junior in high school. Niners met with him at the Shrine practices. So that's another one to remember. I think there's no question that Rivaldo Fairweather, with his huge long arms and ability to help as a blocker or as a receiver, I think he's super, super intriguing as far as some of the guys that they've met with recently. But yeah, Eugene Asante, to me, of all the guys, the other one is Bo Spearman. The Niners met with a group of linebackers: Eugene Asante, Nick Martin, Chris Paul, and Bo Spearman. Bo Spearman's interesting for Austin, PA. He's probably not going to be drafted. The Niners met with him at one of the All-Star games and at the Pro Day. And Spearman had a really good year for Austin P. I mean, he's a tackling machine. He's all over the place. He's another one of these hyperactive linebackers. And if you're looking for a guy they met with recently that could also be a sleeper, another Central Arkansas player, Tamarian Wilson, the safety from Central Arkansas. His agent spoke recently with the Niners. This guy's a productive player. If you flip on the film and watch Wilson in Central Arkansas on the purple turf, this guy was smoking guys left and right. Just absolutely huge hitter. Tamarian Wilson. And I think he's a safety. I don't know if he's more of a free safety or a strong safety. I haven't studied his game extensively, but that's a good looking prospect. I just watched him for like 10 minutes and you could see, I mean, he comes flying up. He makes a lot of plays. Big, big hitter. So, just there you go, the list. I mean, the big news of the day is Josh Conerly, the Oregon offensive tackle, has met with the Niners at the Combine, had a formal meeting. But as I said, I think that's a dated report. But overall, the Niners have met. To me, it's like if you look at this list, you say what really stands out. That the guys that they really probably need to draft on the defensive line, of those guys, I think they met with a lot of the guys that I could see them drafting, like Walter Nolan, CJ West, Kenneth Grant, Aeneas Peebles, Shamar Turner. I could definitely see 2 or 3 of those guys being 49ers. And on the defensive end list, Olufemi Oladejo, David Walker, Jod Joyner, Kyle Kennard, Shamar Stewart. I could see, 2 or 3 of those guys becoming 49ers. So, it's interesting to chart the guys that they've met. As far as what does it all mean in the grand scheme of things, we should have probably started with this, but over the last 2 seasons, the 49ers off this list that Steph Sanchez has accumulated, I checked the list over the last couple of years. The Niners drafted over the last 2 seasons 24, I didn't say drafted. Niners added to their roster 24 players over the last 2 years from this list that they had met with in some fashion prior to the draft. 24 over the last 2 years. So of the last 2 years, how many total players did they meet with? I would say roughly 100. So what percentage chance are these guys of becoming 49ers? I would say about a 25% chance in the grand scheme of the whole draft. But it is definitely an indicator of guys that they like and that they're looking at. And the latest one that gets headlines is Conerly. But I'll tell you, if you look at that list and look at the guys that they've met with most recently, Caleb Etienne had a virtual meeting, and I guess that might have been a recent meeting. Etienne, to me, is really exciting, really an exciting player. When you think about The size, the speed, the athleticism. BYU is kind of an underrated program. And one other guy who's kind of also probably kind of a day 3 guy, if not an undrafted guy, but they met with him, is Isaac Tesla. And it seems like Tesla's in the news a lot. This guy's name is probably Tesla, to be honest. It's Teslaa, but he's a wide receiver from Arkansas, but he's really athletic and he's got a great catch profile. This guy can catch the ball. He looks like he could play maybe fullback, H-back, tight end, maybe a little receiver, kind of a jumbo receiver. But he's got pretty good speed. He's got good hands. He made a lot of plays, and every time I watched him, I thought, man, this guy actually has got a little juice. He might be able to make it at the next level. So one sleeper to remember there, Isaac Tesla from the University of Arkansas. All right. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube. Thanks, of course, to LearnKey. Thanks to Claudaddy. Thanks to all of our sponsors. The links are in the description for all the sponsors. Thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.